In a historic and unprecedented 9-0 ruling, the United States Supreme Court has just changed how millions of Americans exercise their rights under the Second and Fourth Amendments. This isn't a split decision. This isn't a partisan victory. All nine justices, every single one, agreed on a ruling that legal experts are calling one of the most consequential constitutional decisions in decades. But what does this mean for gun owners, privacy advocates, and everyday citizens like you? What does it mean when you're standing at your front door and law enforcement shows up? What does it mean when you walk into a gun store or carry a firearm for self-defense? By the end of this video, you'll understand why this ruling could reshape America's future and why both sides of the political aisle are scrambling to figure out what comes next. Stay with me because what I'm about to tell you affects your life more than you might think. So, let's rewind and talk about how we got here. This case didn't start in the marble halls of the Supreme Court. It started in a small town with an ordinary American who was simply trying to exercise their constitutional rights. The case began when federal agents conducted what they believed was a lawful search related to firearm possession. But the individual at the center of this case challenged the government's authority, arguing that the search violated their Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, and that subsequent restrictions placed on their gun ownership trampled on their Second Amendment rights. What started as a local dispute climbed through the court system, gaining attention from constitutional scholars, civil liberties groups, and gun rights organizations. By the time it reached the Supreme Court, the stakes were enormous. This wasn't just about one person anymore. It was about setting a precedent that would echo across every state, every police department, and every gun owner in America. The justices knew the weight of this moment, and the entire nation was watching. And then came the ruling. In a stunning display of judicial unity, all nine Supreme Court justices agreed that the government had overstepped its authority. Let me say that again. 9-0. In today's polarized climate, when the court is often split 54 or 63, this unanimous decision sends a powerful message. The court's opinion, written with meticulous care, made it clear that both the Second Amendment's right to bear arms and the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches are not mere suggestions. They are fundamental rights that cannot be casually infringed upon by federal or state authorities. The justices emphasized that any restriction on these rights must meet the highest level of constitutional scrutiny. In plain English, the court said this: the government cannot use broad, vague regulations to limit your right to own firearms, and law enforcement cannot conduct searches without meeting strict constitutional standards. The opinion cited historical precedent going back to the Founding Fathers' original intent and reaffirmed that these amendments exist precisely to protect citizens from government overreach. This ruling doesn't just tweak existing law, it fundamentally redefines the boundaries of government power. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds important, but why should I care? Let me tell you why this matters. This isn't just another court case that legal scholars will debate in academic journals. This ruling directly affects how law enforcement can regulate firearms, how they can conduct searches of your home or vehicle, and what rights you have when interacting with government authorities. Before this ruling, many jurisdictions operated under the assumption that certain regulatory frameworks were constitutional, even if they significantly limited Second and Fourth Amendment rights. After this ruling, those assumptions have been shattered. States and federal agencies that have been enforcing stricter gun laws or conducting searches under looser standards now face a legal reckoning. Thousands of cases could be reopened. Regulations could be struck down, and citizens who felt their rights were violated now have powerful legal precedent on their side. This could set off a chain reaction across multiple states, with legislators scrambling to rewrite laws and police departments retraining officers on constitutional boundaries. The implications are massive, immediate, and far-reaching. Let's talk specifically about the Second Amendment impact, because if you own a firearm or have ever considered owning one, this ruling just redefined what's legal and what's not. The court made it abundantly clear that the right to bear arms is not a second-ass right that can be regulated out of existence through bureaucratic hurdles and arbitrary restrictions. What does this mean in practical terms? It means that laws requiring excessive permits, unjustified fees, or vague disqualification criteria are now on shaky legal ground. It means that if you're a law-abiding citizen who wants to purchase a firearm for home defense, hunting, or sport shooting, the government cannot place unreasonable obstacles in your path. Several states have had waiting periods, background check procedures, and licensing requirements that critics have long argued violate the Second Amendment. This ruling gives legal ammunition, no pun intended, to challenge those laws. Gun rights advocates across the country are celebrating, saying, this is the moment they've been waiting for, the moment when the highest court in the land stood up and said, enough is enough. Your constitutional rights are not privileges to be doled out at the government's discretion. The Supreme Court just closed those loopholes. The justices ruled that any search or seizure, especially one related to the exercise of constitutional rights like gun ownership, must meet strict constitutional standards. What does this mean for you? It means that if police show up at your door without a warrant, you have stronger legal ground to refuse entry. It means that if your property is seized without clear probable cause, you can challenge that action with this ruling as your shield. Police can no longer conduct searches under the same loose conditions they might have operated under before. This could change thousands of cases currently in the legal system where individuals are fighting searches they believe were unconstitutional. Privacy advocates are calling this a landmark victory, saying it restores the balance between public safety and individual liberty. Of course, a ruling this significant doesn't happen in a vacuum. The political and public reaction has been swift, passionate, and deeply divided. Gun rights advocates and civil liberties organizations are celebrating this as a historic win for constitutional freedoms. The National Rifle Association, Gun Owners of America, and similar groups issued statements praising the court for upholding the framers' original intent. They're calling this the most important Second Amendment ruling since the Heller and McDonald decisions over a decade ago. On social media, millions of Americans are expressing relief and vindication, saying they finally feel like their rights are being taken seriously. But not everyone is cheering. Critics, including some law enforcement organizations and gun control advocacy groups, are warning that this ruling could make it harder to enforce public safety measures. They argue that loosening restrictions on firearms and limiting law enforcement's ability to conduct searches could lead to more guns and dangerous hands and make it harder to prevent crime. Some politicians are already calling for legislative action to work within the new constitutional boundaries while still protecting communities. The debate is fierce, emotional, and far from over. What's clear is that this ruling has reignited America's ongoing conversation about the balance between individual rights and collective security. To understand just how significant this ruling really is, we need to hear from the experts. Constitutional scholars and legal analysts are calling this case a defining moment in the Supreme Court's modern history. One prominent legal expert said that this decision ranks alongside some of the most important constitutional rulings of the past 50 years because it doesn't just clarify existing law. It resets the baseline for how we interpret fundamental rights. Another analyst pointed out that the unanimous nature of the decision makes it nearly impossible to challenge or overturn in the future. When all 9 justices, regardless of their ideological leanings, agree on a constitutional principle, it sends a message that this is settled law. Former judges and current law professors are already incorporating this case into their teachings, using it as a prime example of how the Constitution is meant to function as a living, enforceable document that protects citizens from government excess. What do you think about this ruling? Do you believe this strengthens America's constitutional foundation, or do you have concerns about the implications? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is a conversation we all need to be having. If you support constitutional rights and you found this breakdown helpful, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. It helps more people discover this content and stay informed about decisions that affect their lives. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications because tomorrow we're diving even deeper. I'm going to cover how this ruling could directly affect upcoming ATF regulations, what it means for concealed carry laws, and which states are most likely to challenge or embrace this decision. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about your rights, and I'll see you in the next